I'd like to call the Appeals Committee meeting to order on this March 11th, 2026. I'm be your chairperson today. I'm the City Councilor from Menardsky, Ross Eady. And with me today, we have Councilor Dobson from St. James, Councilor Rollins from Fort Rouge, East Fort Garry, and Councilor Mays from St. Vital. Yes. Yes, we're meeting here. The appeal meetings are here on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, Dakota peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. It is also where we receive our water from Shoal Lake 40 in the Treaty 3 territory. Councilor Dobson, would you move the minutes of February 25th, 2026?
Okay, I move that the minutes of meeting held on February 25th, 2026 be taken as read and confirmed.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. I forgot to introduce, we have a few planners from Property and Development with us today, as well as, and I'm about to hand it off to our Senior Committee Clerk, Miss Carly
Dulski. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the appellant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the appeal. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the appellant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after a public hearing, please consult the City Clerk's Department website. Please note that all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Should you have any questions after the hearings have concluded, please contact the City Clerk's Department. Item number 1 is an appeal against the decision of the Director of Planning, Property and Development to approve a variance for 1121 Lee Boulevard under file number DAV 250311A/2025B. Members of committee, please note communications were received in support of and in opposition to the appeal, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. We have no one joining us over Zoom today, so we can jump right into a overview from our planners, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. The subject property is located on the north side of Lee Boulevard between Barnes Street and Shore Street. This is in the Fairfield Park neighborhood of the Waverly West Ward. The subject property has a total land area of just under 12,000 square feet and a lot width of 100 feet. It's currently zoned R1M, residential single family medium. The subject property currently contains a single family dwelling that was constructed in 1975. The site is located within the recent communities policy area of Complete Communities 2.0. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing dwelling on the site and split the two underlying lots on the site, lots 17 and 18, onto separate titles. On each of the lots, the applicant proposes to construct side-by-side duplex dwellings. Each of the proposed lots will have widths of 50 feet and lot areas of approximately 5,900 square feet. Plans submitted show each of the proposed side-by-side duplexes will be 2 stories in height. Access to the proposed lots will be taken from private approaches from Lee Boulevard, as there is no public lane access to this site. Duplex dwellings are permitted on the subject site under the development requirements for low density infill or under Schedule AC of the Winnipeg zoning bylaw. This Schedule AC was approved by Council in 2025. A variance is required because the Schedule AC requires dwellings on R1 lots to have either a narrow or broad frontage in relation to the street. The narrow primary mass cannot exceed 30 feet, whether that's regardless of how that is configured. In other words, building footprints when building under Schedule AC. Building footprints essentially need to have a rectangular shape with either a narrow or a broader side facing the street. The proposed side-by-side duplexes are considered to have a broad frontage, broadly fronting the street, because the total duplex dwelling is measured together rather than the individual duplex units that are beside each other. And therefore, the maximum building depth of the primary mass, so the depth back from the street, cannot exceed 30 feet. That's kind of the maximum that they're permitted under Schedule AC. The applicant is proposing duplex dwellings with the primary building mass having that narrow depth, so the depth of the buildings back from the street of 39 feet instead of the maximum 30 that they are allowed. As such, a variance is required. In the case of this proposal, Schedule AC, after our review, it was considered to have an adverse effect on the proposal because it's side-by-side duplexes, and Schedule AC measures the entire massing rather than measuring the primary mass of the individual dwelling unit. So like other variances, we look at this in terms of compatibility, and the Public Service approved this variance because the lot coverage for the proposal is 39% on each of the lots, which are well under the maximum lot coverage allowed under Schedule AC, which is 57.5%. The depths of the buildings are compatible with existing building depths elsewhere on this block. The existing dwellings next door on either side are between 47 and 49 feet in depth. And elsewhere on this block, the depths of houses built after 1950 or so are typically greater than 30 feet. So this variance was approved, but has since been appealed by area residents and is therefore before this committee today. That's my summary. I'm happy to answer questions.
I have a procedural question, Mr. Chair. But it isn't like other variances in that when we did, I'm looking at the minutes of June 5th, 2025, the end of the 4 days of public hearings on what was colloquially known as the fourplexes, but was really this Schedule AC.
Yeah.
And there's a whole provision about development procedure bylaw be amended. Appropriate community committee for the area in which the affected property is situated be designated as the hearing body for appeals of any conditional use and variance orders made by the Director of Planning, Property and Development under the new Schedule AC of the Winnipeg zoning bylaw. So I'd assumed coming in here that this predated all that, but if we're citing that as the applicable governing set of rules, you can't have that both ways. Well, these are the rules that govern, but it came in, but we're not going to use the appeal procedure. But that's what council approved.
Any answers?
I'd have to look at that. I'm not sure. I don't know if you.
Could we take a really brief recess and just
No problem.
take that's great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Josh, sorry, can we just take a brief recess? Thank you.
I'm calling this hearing meeting back to order. Maybe Councillor Mays, would you move to adjourn the hearing on this particular variance until after we deal with the Gordon Avenue appeal?
Yes, so moved.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, that is carried. So,
Okay.
Ms. Stolsky.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 2 is an appeal against the decision of the City Center Community Committee to approve a variance for 1460 Gordon Avenue under file number DAV 223033A/2025D. Members of committee, please note communications were received in opposition to the appeal, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. We have no one joining us over Zoom, so we can move on to a brief explanation from our planner.
This is a D variance that was considered as part of a larger application, a subdivision and rezoning included with it at the City Center Community Committee earlier this year. The property is located at the southwest corner of Niagara Street and Corden Avenue in the Central River Heights neighborhood of the River Heights Fort Garry ward. The property is located in an established neighborhood, mature community policy area of Complete Communities 2.0. The property was approved to be rezoned to the RMU Residential Mixed Use District. The applicant intends to construct a mixed-use multifamily building with a ground floor commercial space. The building would be 4 stories in height at its peak, but it steps down to 3 stories in parts. It would have a 5.8-foot rear yard setback to the lane, a 10-foot front yard setback to the Niagara Street property line, a north corner side yard setback of 5 feet to the Corden Avenue property line, and a 25-foot south side yard setback to the abutting single-family dwelling. It would have ground floor commercial units with the residential units located on the upper floors, and it includes 8 trees as well on the site plan. There are a total of 7 variances that are associated with this. The administration recommended approval of all of the variances, and the community committee also approved the variances. I'll go through the variances now. So variance 1 and 4 are in many respects the same, so I'll treat them as one. This is a rear yard of 5.8 feet. This variance was supported because the lane and the proposed building setback ensures that there's an approximately 25-foot separation to the lot line of the properties opposite on the lane, and the majority of the building also steps down to 3 stories. Variance number 2 is a front yard of 10 feet to the commercial portion instead of 30 feet. This was supported because a 0-foot setback to Niagara is the same condition opposite of this site on the other side of Niagara Street. And because there is such a significantly large south side yard in the proposal, that there's no concerns with the sight lines on the single family to the south. Variance 3 is a north corner side yard of 5 feet to the residential portion instead of 20 feet. This was also supported with the rationale being that this is a common feature along Corden, and because all of our policies encourage bringing multifamily and commercial buildings up to the street edge. Skipping variance 4 because that was considered with variance 1. Variance 5 is a lot area per dwelling unit of 770 square feet instead of 800 square feet. This is a very small discrepancy and supported as such. The next variance is number 6 is 23 parking spaces instead of 44 parking spaces. So there's a little bit of nuance to this one. The applicant is proposing 1 car share stall. And in addition to the 1 car share stall, there's also an existing condition requiring the applicant to obtain a shared parking agreement for 5 additional stalls. This would reduce the total parking deficit to only 4 stalls short of what's required, which is a relatively small amount for a building of this size. And given that this is on Corden Avenue, excellent transit and surrounding amenities and bike infrastructure, this was supported. And then the last variance is for insufficient street edge landscaping. And this is largely prompted by the fact that the building has a small setback to Corden Avenue and requires plantings along Corden, but it would be almost impossible to plant trees along Corden given that setback. However, they have moved many of the required trees to Niagara Street and to the south side yard with the single family dwelling. Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, just to confirm on the trees, so there's no existing trees on the south side?
There are also existing trees.
So there's 8 additional trees.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, so that covers all the variances. There are conditions associated with this approval. So the first condition, the 2 most relevant ones is that condition 2 is that prior to the issuance of any development permits, a signed service agreement with a car share provider shall be submitted to and approved by the Director of Planning, Property and Development. And this car share agreement is required to provide 1 stall. If anybody's looking at the original admin report, it specifies 2 stalls, but that was an error. It was supposed to say 1. So that was corrected at the community committee meeting. And then the third condition is that prior to the issuance of any development permits, the developer shall provide a shared parking agreement showing an additional 5 parking stalls or other suitable alternative to the Director of Planning, Property and Development. And yes, Councilor.
One question, the shared parking agreement, that is what, visitor stalls? How does that work? What is it?
Yes, it's so typically especially in built up urban neighborhoods like this, we'll look for ways to offset parking. If you can't find all of your parking on the site, for example, there are some strip malls around here that potentially have extra stalls available, and so you could have an agreement with them and then provide that to the director if you're close by. So in this case, there's going to be a commercial property at grade, and so the idea is just to ensure that there's still lots of parking for the commercial.
Okay, now I understand that. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's those are the key conditions and the variances, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Who wants to go first?
I'm good. I'm good. That was my question.
No questions? No? Good, no.
Okay.
All right. The only one I had was regarding trees, so.
Okay, so then we have 2 of our appellants joining us in person today. We have Rob Lucky. And if Rob, you'd like to come speak to the committee? Yeah, just at the end of the table, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Lucky.
Hi, I'm Rob Lucky. I live 511 Queenston. I don't know if you have my submission. It's 2 pages. I guess when looking at the decision, the variance order, I believe it was Orlico that wrote this, or
Committee held councillors Rollins, Orlico, and Gilroy.
okay, whoever wrote it. I disagree with B, C, and D, where it's ticked. It says B does not create substantial adverse effect to the adjoining properties. It does. The parking is going to be the biggest issue and all the setbacks. And C is minimum modification of a zoning bylaw required. There's major, the setbacks, some of them are 25% of the required setbacks, and the parking is about 50% of the required parking. And D, compatible with the area. There's nothing like this in this area. This area is C1. All the commercial properties are mainly single story. There's a new 2-story, a couple new 2-stories, but there's nothing like this. And I'll get to item 3 in the decision. It says, I understand that, however, they have the right to do a C1 property, and the the 4-story multifamily, and I'm okay with C1. This because if you look at C1 on my second page, C1 is a 2,500 square foot maximum for restaurants. This restaurant is almost 5,000 square feet. And there's basically going to be no parking. There's enough parking, like the multifamily requirement for parking is 1.5. Which would be 33 stalls. There's only going to be 22 or 23. And this is going to be a high rent property. All the people are going to have cars. Like, there's going to be no use to have the shared, and there's no requirement to keep it there. If it's not being used, the thing's gonna get hauled out, the share car. My daughter's in a building that has a share car and never moves. So that, to say that that accounts for 20 stalls, I just can't even believe that somebody would say that. And the bus service is sometimes is limited. It only comes up to Corden, comes up to Cambridge. But on my second page, it says here, this is from your zoning RMU C1 districts allow 2,500 square feet of restaurant. C2 districts allow a maximum of 5,000. We're at 4,900. If you look at I understand it's gonna be a Stella's. If you look at the Stella's on Grant, they have a big parking lot. The Stella's at Courts of St. James, they have a big parking lot. This is a 5,000 square foot. I've done the math. There could be 100 cars here and no parking. It's the 5,000 square foot restaurant is way too big. And if it turns into a bar, it's going to be a disaster. And I saw that happen when we lived in Waterloo in the second block. The restaurants turned into bars and they have no parking. It's just chaos there. I'm glad we moved. Anyway, if you look at the bottom, 22 for parking would require 49 stalls. So the parking is a big issue. And I guess I'm out of time.
Okay. Well, I think we have questions, councilors.
No issue with the height?
Well, we're told that that's a given. It has to
That's
but I mean, if you go by, well, it's a given that it can be 49 or 39 or whatever feet high, then okay. But then you can't turn around and say, but we're only going to use, we only need half the parking and we're going to build. Like if I applied to put an addition on my house 5-10 feet from the front sidewalk, would you allow that? I don't think so.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a question? No. Okay. Mr. Lecky, so you're on Queenston. That's one street to the west. Is that right?
Exactly.
So you're concerned about the parking is related to?
Well, the parking is a disaster already because Brockcourt School doesn't have a parking lot.
Where's Brock Gordon?
We back on it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So Queenston backs on Brockcourt School.
Right.
If you go there now, there's half a block of cars. So if people come for breakfast at Stella's, there literally could be 100 cars. I've done the math. It's not hard. That place could hold 200 people. If half of them have cars, there could be 100 cars. The commercial building next to it, which I don't know how they're going to get 5 stalls out of that. During the day, it's packed. There's I can't remember what it is now. It was a dentist, but there's a real estate office. There's cars everywhere. They park, the lot's full. There's all over the streets. But I mean, the thing with the school is the kids are like these little kids. It's an elementary school are getting out of the cars. It's amazing they're not getting flattened on Corden. I don't know where the people are going to park here. Like 5,000 square feet is a huge restaurant. That's a C2. That should be in a shopping center.
Brock Gordon, do that most parents drop their use the back lane to drop their kids off?
Yeah, I can't get out of my garage at 3:30 because they back up. And they park all the way down Corridor, up and down Corridor. But this, and all the teachers, that's where they park too. It's mainly teachers parking in front of our house.
Right, they don't park on, there is a parking lot in Brock Gordon School?
No. Well, I mean, the
There's a
couple,
small parking lot there.
yeah, there's a couple. It's a big busy school. There's daycare, there's everything.
Okay. Okay, I
But
just wanted,
basically, yeah, I mean, the people stop at the bus stops. There's 2 bus stops there.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
There'll be other people appearing. You'll, as the appellant, you'll be able to come back and rebut anything
Okay.
you heard. Okay, thank you.
The next appellant we have with us here today in person is Ken Christensen.
Okay.
He's making his way to the table. Mr. Christensen, you'll have up to 5 minutes with the committee as well.
I beg your pardon?
You'll have up to 5 minutes to speak to the
Thank you
committee.
very much.
Yep.
My name is Ken Christensen. I live at 516 Queenston. Thank you, Mr. Chairman Eady and councillors, for allowing me and others to speak. We have a number of people who have sent in letters as well. In opposition, we consider our appeal and these variances to respect the city's old development and policies to reject the construction of this very large apartment block on this very small parcel of land. My wife and I have lived at 516 Queenston for 40 years. I'm a walker and I know most of my neighbors. 220 of them signed the petition in opposition to build at change.org. Many of them also wrote in their appeals. We all know that there will be some sort of development with a bank, used to be. However, we count on the councillors to ensure that the city respects its own guidance relative to the size and scale of the building and should not detract from the existing mature neighborhood. We don't believe the development at any cost is a mandate, and development that has a significant negative impact on the existing residents is unreasonable. You may be aware from the drawings, the area is predominantly bungalows with small backyards and the elementary school 1 street over. The proposed 4-story building will be completely out of place. There are not a 4-story building anywhere between Keniston and Stafford. Councillor Orlico, and I quote, chuckled when he said it was large and that was not a dispute that the residents would like. He said it is the best that we can get from this proposal. But I ask you, Chairman and members, is that a reason to approve? I believe that the questions you have to ask as our elected representatives are as follows. Does it meet or enhance the character of the surrounding area? The answer is no. Is it consistent with the building size and scope in the surrounding area? The answer is no. Does it meet the city's minimum requirements for parking? The answer is no. Does it provide the adequate setbacks to reduce the visual impact on the neighborhood? The answer is no. Does it increase traffic congestion in an area not equipped to handle it? A resounding yes. Will it have a negative impact on the safety of the residents and the children at the elementary school? Again, the answer is yes. The area is already very congested with parents as Bob has said, dropping off children and picking them up. The new insurance building across the street also adds additional traffic. Our entire street is full of cars, and there is nowhere for people to park when they come to visit us. Anyone who comes to the neighborhood can see how little parking there is and how much traffic there already is, but there was no traffic study done. The impact of adding 20 apartment units, insufficient parking, and a restaurant in the small space is really unbelievable. We believe that this development is wholly unsuited to the space. There is nowhere for people coming to the bakery to park. There is insufficient parking for the people who live in the building, less than even the minimum required by the city. There is only one exit point for deliveries, and everyone in the parking garage that is down the back lane. When the bank was in space, the traffic down the lane was terrible. And there was a safety hazard when there was 2 exits. Now there's only 1, and considerably more traffic. We understand that the developer wants to develop this property and has come with a wish list to create housing for the reasons I have stated. This is not the right location for development of this size, and we therefore ask council to consider our appeal and reject these variances. Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
Maybe one or two. I appreciate the comments, and certainly Councillor Orlikow has had to deal with a lot of densification, so have most other councillors. Certainly I have, certainly Dobson, certainly some others. Councillor Eady certainly had some applications. I guess in some ways the matter that we laid over earlier, which deals with a new bylaw that is meant to really allow a lot more densification in existing areas, converting homes being converted to 2-plex, 3-plex, 4-plex. Part of that whole debate was we had a ton of people coming in saying there should be no parking minimums. And we probably had about as many people coming in saying, no, there should be parking minimums, but we had a ton of people coming in arguing against it. And in fact, there's a large chunk of Councillor Orlikow's ward. I'll maybe ask this to the planners afterwards. I mean, I guess, are you aware of that there's an entire debate about whether to have any minimum parking requirements on new developments?
No, sir.
Okay. If I can ask the planners, there is a, I don't think we've even passed it. There's a, you can't have parking minimums requirement coming out of the federal government within 800 meters walking distance from
Learning institutions.
or learning institutions and very rapid transit, or some good definition of rapid transit, unlike, well, I'll leave that alone, but from the transit corridor, but we're not in that we're not into any of that here, are we?
No, none of those. The reductions that you're referring to there do not apply in this context. It's within 400 meters of the primary transit network, separate matter in some respects. And so we did factor that into our consideration of the variance, but to the point of, do we think about rapid transit or anything like that? No.
Okay. So yeah, so there's going to be a whole federal mandate, a whole corridor where there'll be no parking minimums allowed, but that's a little further east of this, and around the 2 universities. Well, several post-secondary institutions, as well as the whole BRT corridor.
Yes, that's right. Not on Gordon.
Okay, so only the VRT, not frequent.
Yes, and actually the common sense application of what rapid transit is, just the main corridor.
The actual transit way
Yeah.
is, They have to be considered there.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate the presentation. Councillor Orlico has certainly been one to raise a lot of these issues, certainly on some of these other mid-block, not on the corners, but further in. There's been certainly a lot of fights over the last 7 or 8 years on these matters, but this is, I mean, this is fronting on Corridor. So I think, anyway, the community committee would have had a whole hearing on this. So thank you for coming down here.
Thank you.
Major arterial.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for questions.
Paved lane?
It is, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of our appellants? Christian? Nope, no questions. Okay, thank you. You'll be able to come back and rebut anything you hear. I imagine the applicant will be here post the appeal. And when you come back to rebut, no new information.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, we have no one else registered in support of the appeal. So we can move on to those in opposition to the appeal, and we do have the applicant joining us in person today, Mr. Pedro Chagas. Chagas, yeah. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Perfect.
Okay.
Mr. Trader,
All right.
5 minutes for your presentation.
Yes, I have a little, just slides that I haven't presented prior. Should come up here.
Considered Wilson Corners. No.
Thanks, Josh.
That's a good question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee and planning administration. My name is Pedro Chagas. I wear 2 hats. I'm an architect of record on the project, representing Chagas Architecture and Development, Inc. here in Winnipeg. I'm also a resident at 539 Niagara Street, 4 houses to the south of this development. I'm the architect of other urban infill projects consistent with our Winnipeg 2045. I've been the architect for projects on Wardlaw, most recently 1100 Corridor, that's just opened, and we're hopeful that this project can become another example of infill urban density for mature communities consistent with our Winnipeg 2045. I'm very proud to be an architect involved in these type of projects. They require, there's a lot of complexity to them. They're not, suburban greenfield developments. They take a lot of effort by our developers to purchase, rezone, go through meetings with community meetings with the administration towards getting a project that can receive a positive planning report and the support of the community. I appreciate the concerns I've heard throughout the community, but we've also heard many positive, supportive comments in the community. So unfortunately, it is not a divisive, but it does bring community together in great debate towards our community. Everybody's very passionate in River Heights and Crescentwood in their community. They really believe in it. So do I. However, there are always 2 perspectives, a dichotomy. And as a result, the variances that we've proposed here, and I don't want to go through each one of them and explain exactly, but I think contextually, the 2 major concerns is the building too large. Well, the project is actually reduced in height from what's allowed. We're allowed up to 60 feet, and we've reduced it down to 45. And the comment made a lot of times is referencing stories. And there's many commercial buildings that are office space that are at least the same height or maybe even a little lower. And they're only 2 stories because office space tends to have a 12 to 14 foot floor to floor elevation, whereas residential, you're into the 8s and 9s. So for referring to stories isn't appropriate. It's really the height. And we're compliant there. In addition to that, we also recognized, and I'll just go through, this is just a perspective of the corner of Corridor and Waverly, or Corridor and Niagara. And as you can appreciate, we have a very interactive main floor. We have setbacks to the main floor of the building to the commercial areas. It isn't a restaurant. It will never be a bar because that's non-conforming use. I have no right to open a bar here. This is a restaurant bakery, actually. So there's a significant bakery portion to it, and the seating area is quite reduced because of the amount of production for the bread, for pastries.
Sir, can you just orient which cordon is going?
Cordon is running in front
Okay.
and Niagara's running to the side here.
Thank you.
Yes. And
South? Or
Okay.
north?
I'm just trying to flip the page here on this. Where would the page document be here? I could probably just do this.
Niagara's to the west.
Niagara's to the east.
How do I flip the page?
I think you just scroll down, I think.
Oh, okay, good. So here's some pictures of existing conditions on the site. So there's your Niagara frontage and Cordon frontage. This is the building that would be demolished and replaced with this building mass. What we've done is, and you can appreciate this from the slide on to the right, we've set back the property at the upper level, reducing it to 3 stories. We've done that not by any subjective reason, we've done it by shadow studies. So we have a shadow study that's represented the original file and variances to demonstrate that by truncating the upper portion of the 4th floor, we were able to maintain sun angles for the residents to the east, or to the west, sorry. And so this building has been truncated at the top, and you can see this diagram has illustrated that for you. And that's all been objectively analyzed for 4 points of time during the year to demonstrate that. And we've done shadow studies to illustrate that. And that's the reason objectively why we had to pare back the upper level to, to respect our neighbors to the west. In terms of the actual setbacks, a lot of it's been done through qualitative. As you can appreciate, zoning bylaws are quantitative in nature. By reading Communities 2.0 in conjunction with our Winnipeg 2045, we start bringing in qualitative requirements to those. And so we've reduced the quantitative, but have always done it with a qualitative offering by landscaping, truncation of the mass, erosion of the mass to allow the frontage. I just wanted to show you a little diagram here. It jumps quite a bit. So we can see in the perspective, we've eroded the elevation to allow those interfaces to occur. And the parking, we do have a shared parking, which is a contract. That contract is perpetuity of the building. It's registered to the property. And Car Peg to Go is very successful. Is very successful provider in Crescentwood and River Heights.
Extension.
Yeah. How much longer do you need to?
Not much, another minute if possible.
So moved. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, continue, sir.
I started rambling there because I knew the time was running out. So the building has been studied not only through our eyes, we've represented it to the planning administration. And we've worked very diligently with the group to mitigate those variances as it relates to the main floor. So what you can see on the main floor, the cordon frontage has landscaping and a setback, but not only a setback, we've landscaped, we've created a little bit of a plaza, we've eroded the corner, we've done things to interface with the community and the street edge. The same thing on Cordon, we didn't bring the main floor of Cordon right to the property line. As you can see, we've actually introduced landscaping, even though inefficient. We have provided landscaping buffer between the sidewalk and the patio, so to speak. And then we set back the fenestration of the building another further 10 feet. So again, what it does, it erodes that lower level and interacts with the public interface. Thank you.
Questions?
Maybe 1 or 2.
Go ahead.
The one variance seems quite minor to me, the lot area per dwelling unit of 770 instead of 800. I mean, that's allowing you one more unit, maybe?
No, not even.
Yeah.
It's basically, when you bulk out the dimensioning of the building, you do a calculation. And we're just slightly over that. And then there's no reason behind it, except it's the bulking out of the square footage relative to
Yeah.
the coverage.
You could,
Yeah.
you could make one huge unit instead of two that you got there now in the same building, right? I mean.
Right,
it's
exactly.
sort
We
of-
could reduce it to
and the
17
parking,
units.
like,
Yeah.
stripped by it.
Yeah. And to be frank, 20 units, at this point in time, that's where we're establishing, but there's a great possibility that could be reduced in the final analysis.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for questions. So the south yard, that's like,
I will have another question when you're done. So,
Yes.
yeah, I'm trying to get,
Oh, yes,
so again, Niagara's to the west of this property.
correct.
Okay, so that south side where that, is that house is behind it on Niagara?
Yes, and we have support from that neighbor. We've worked with them in dealing with the buffer, so we've included fencing. We've maintained all the existing vegetation that's there. It's well established. It's well over 25 years old, and we're augmenting in addition to that. And that neighbor's been consulted extensively on that frontage or side yard.
So, yeah, it's kind of a weird thing, right? Anyway, in the back, there's a back lane to the east.
It's flipped. So the front street is on the east and the back lane is on the west.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see.
Yes,
Oh, okay, I'm on the, okay, I get it. Okay.
sorry for my,
No, so I'm just trying to confirm where all this stuff is. So you referred to a patio. Where's that?
that's on the fronting cordon,
Oh, right, yeah, okay,
which faces north.
right. So when you have that front yard setback, what is it? 4 feet?
5'8", no, 5'8".
Okay, so, that setback and then the patio starts and then the building,
And then the lower level of the main floor
yeah,
is an additional 10, 12 feet there.
okay.
That's only on the main floor.
Yeah, I get it, it's mixed use, right? So, okay, I understand it a little bit better, okay. Counselor Mees.
The image that Councillor Dobson has helpfully called up here shows a bus stop right in front.
Yes,
Is
absolutely.
that, we changed a lot of routes, we changed a lot of stops, still a bus stop right
Yes.
there? Okay.
And yeah, so we have two services that come in front of our building, number 19 and 78. 78 services the entire University of Manitoba, and 19 interconnects with the entire urban network. So it's a very lively and well-used transit route given, and that's part of our parking plan proposal that we put forward, demonstrates the highly use of both 19 or 18 and 78 and 78, which goes to the university. Those may be the old numbers, actually, Chairman. I mean,
Yeah.
You say 18, that's that was the old,
That's the old.
Main
It'll
Street.
be a D
Correct,
something.
yeah, whatever it is now.
So it's a 19, is it?
I think it's D19
It
now,
is the
right?
D19.
Yes, and then
All right.
78, what's that number now?
The 18 is now the FX2.
Is it? Okay.
Anyway, but it doesn't go anywhere near Gordon, so.
Right, so, so both good connections, and we also have a bus stop on our side of the street. We also have one right across the street also, so it's very accessible. In addition to that, we also have the car share, underground parking, and an additional 6 stalls on the upper, on the main floor outside.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's good, Russ. That's it for your question?
Yeah, I'm good too.
Oh, no other questions? All right. Thank you, sir, for your presentation, and we'll see how things turn out.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
No, we have no one else registered in opposition. So now at this time, we could have questions to the public service.
Yes. Counselors, any questions of the public service?
Can we just double check so the bus still stops right in front, number D9? Anything you can add
There's
to the
definitely transit across Corden. I don't believe that the stop has changed. I know they've been. I'm just pulling up our IFU later to see exactly the location on that transportation.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is. It's right on the corner of Niagara and Corden. There's a stop.
And
It's good.
yeah, the density issue, the lot area, really, it's the building wouldn't change. I mean, that one seems pretty minor to me.
It's so minor.
Yeah.
The building mass is being treated through the other variances. The density is it's 30 feet. We come across this a decent amount in particularly in mature neighborhoods where there's the lots are a little bit more constrained and somebody's looking to do an intensification like this. And usually if it's just a handful of feet, then the administration doesn't raise any concerns with that.
I mean, neighbors ask a lot about traffic. I mean, this comes up all the time in probably all the wards, with any sort of established, built form. So 23, is that, what is I mean, there seems to be an endless variety now of parking requirements and whether you're in the mature community or not. This would be in the mature communities. We're still using that label. So can you just talk a bit about the parking variants?
Yeah, absolutely. So the required parking for multifamily by itself in mature neighborhoods is one stall per dwelling unit. And then when there's a combination of uses, so commercial and residential, it changes the calculus a little bit, and they're required to provide it at a ratio of 80%. But I think maybe to the crux of the question, the final count that the zoning bylaw is requiring them to provide here is 44 spaces. They provided 23 spaces, of which one is a car share stall. And car share stalls, our standard is to say that they are worth 12 regular stalls, and that's what we've applied across the city. 12 additional stalls across the city. And then they're also providing they will be providing 5 stalls that they will be renting or obtaining from a neighboring property, such as a strip mall or something like this. And so ultimately, their deficiency, they're only 4 stalls short of what the zoning bylaw would require them to provide otherwise. So, I mean, 4 stalls is on a 20-unit residential building is a fairly small deficiency,
Can you
especially.
run that math again for me? Because someone's going to say it says 23 versus 44. How are you saying it?
Of course.
How are you saying it?
Yes, absolutely.
Is it the 80% or is it the?
Of course, yeah. So the zoning bylaw, at the end of its calculation, the regulation comes out and it says you need to provide 44 parking spaces here. And then we always have ways to offset parking depending on the context. With this one, the applicant, one of those 23 spaces will be a car share stall.
You just said that, yeah.
And then, so the car share stall is worth an additional 12 spaces. And that's our consistent approach that we've used whenever we do car shares. And then in addition to that car share stall, they're all, yes.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, but for the commercial use, there'd be more than one per unit here, right? So, I mean,
Yes.
but there is a commercial, but yeah, it's a trade-off.
So you're 5 short.
4 stalls short.
Well, if you have 22 plus 1 car share, then that equals 12, so that's 40 or 34.
Or car share, or I guess if you include the car share, it'd be 13 by itself or 12
Oh, okay,
additional.
13
Sorry,
by
I
itself,
loose
okay.
language. That's on me.
All right, we're good. No, you're okay. 4.
And what did we come up with? That whole AC again doesn't apply here, the fourplexes, all that stuff, but we said 1 for each residential in that. But in malls, off the top of your head, can you remember what we said on malls and corridors for?
The parking ratio?
Yeah.
0.5. Unless it's on Pembina or Portage. Malls and 0.
Literally zero.
But
Okay, give me
other,
that again if you would. So what we passed in June of October of 24 for malls and corridors, and this isn't in that, good question by Dobson here, but St. Mary's Road, St. Anne's, Henderson, you're building a resident, the ratio there is 0.5.
correct, of
Okay, thank you.
course.
Any questions of the admin, Councillor Dobbs?
No, they've been answered.
Okay, all right, I have one question. When I'm hearing things and, Main Street's a major corridor, right? But, I've heard this in other areas. In this application, was there any reference to bicycle parking?
Yes, they are providing secure indoor bicycle parking. I can,
Indoor, okay.
outside and indoor, I believe, in their parking structure as well. I'll, just scroll to the site plan to pull up the exact number for you.
Usually, there are people who utilize bicycles and use the car share when needed.
Sorry, the font is fuzzy on my end. I'm gonna go back to the zoning analysis to pull up the number.
It's okay, there's provision though, right?
They're not varying the bicycle parking, and they're providing additional units, and I can get it. I just have to refer to the zoning analysis instead of the site plan for it.
It's okay, it's in there, that's all I wanted to confirm. Okay, good. And there was no requirement for variance on that, requirement. Okay, then we're ready to hear back from the appellants.
Correct, Mr. Chair. Yes, we will bring back Mr. Rob Lucky. If you wish to speak in rebuttal to anything that you've heard so far, you will have an additional 5 minutes to speak to the committee if you wish. Okay. And Mr. Ken Christensen, same opportunity. If you would like to speak in rebuttal to anything you've heard so far, you'd have an additional 5 minutes with the committee if you'd like.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. We had appreciate my friend Pedro and what he has to say. The actual building is too big and the property is too small. In walking around the neighborhood, which I always do, the common thread with everybody there is, my God, this is happening in our neighborhood. And what will happen? I mean, what is going on? And they said, well, there is bylaws and the city will protect us. And that's what everybody says. And they're looking for council to look after what they originally planned, which was 40 years ago. And they saw this program and they saw this possibility of happening. You can talk about parking and so on. The fact of the matter is the school a half a block away has parking spots for 2 people. It's a huge school and they have a lot of staff and they park all over the place. That's one of the problems. The other thing is you have a small little yard and you're going to be looking up at 4 stories in a big building with huge amount of traffic. This is not infill. This is a straight commercial development, and I can understand that the developer sees an opportunity to use this building. It will be used for something. We ask council that it not be used for this. Thank you.
Sure. No final questions, I believe, so thank you.
Sorry.
Well, is there? Okay. All right, thank you, sir. I think colleagues, any final question or well, really, Do I have somebody willing to move a motion?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Let me see them.
I'd like to move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, that's carried.
I'd like to move that receipt of public representations be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, that is carried.
I'd like to move that in accordance to subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan, does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including an area separated from the property by a street or waterway, is a minimum modification of a zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property and is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. My reasoning for this is that, number one, it is densifying. The city has to densify. It has a bus stop right out front, so that could help with the parking. They have adjusted the buildings so that the shadow effect to the property on the west side has been looked after. They've decided to put some shrubbery in, which would help the neighborhood. Those are my comments.
Anything?
I'll be agreeing with Councillor Dobson. Yeah, it's under the allowable height limit. So that I think matters a bit when you're considering some of these other side yard and rear yard variances. It's a paved lane, not gravel, so that makes it easier to allow development. And I mean, if this was 4 properties further south, I wouldn't vote for it, but this is not mid-block on one of the side streets. This is on Corridon, and a lot of commercial development on Corridon, and as indicated, there's a transit route right literally on Corridon. So I think, and also I tend to give a fair bit of deference to when these come up through the community committee, not through the directors. So obviously the area councillor supported this with, and made some comments. So yeah, I support Councillor Dobson's motion.
Right. I'll just make a quick comment. I agree with both Councillor Dobson and Councillor Mays. And I just wish this developer would come. We've got some empty bank buildings on Main Street that could be developed. I'll just mention that and be quite welcome in that area. Anyway, I don't see that this has any real adverse effect. Parking is always a debatable issue. Anyway, it's the provisions are there. We did have to give some, but the bicycle parking follows the ideals of the bicycle lobby, who talk about, well, I use a car share and I use my main mode of transportation as a bicycle. So I'm good with this. So calling the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried.
Okay, I move that the appeal be denied and the decision of the City Center Community Committee be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried.
I move that the variance order DAB 223033/2025D be confirmed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried.
And I move that the public hearing with respect to these appeals be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Ms. Dolsky, do you have to say?
Just one small thing, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Please note that the committee has made a final decision on this matter, which is not subject to further appeal.
Right, thank you. We do need to move into the other one, but I need 5 minutes
Okay.
to have go to the middle room over there.
All right.
Thank you, Josh.
Call the hearing on the appeal committee hearing back to order. And we have one order of business business for our senior clerk, Ms. Dolsky, regarding the first variance appeal.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is in regards to the variance appeal for 1121 Lee Boulevard under file number DAV 250-311A/2025B. In accordance with section 37(3) of the Development Procedures Bylaw 104/2020, the appeal committee does not have the authority to make a decision on this appeal. Therefore, the matter is filed. So the property will be reposted with the new date, time, and place the hearing is to occur.
Thank you, Ms. Dolsky.
And I will be in contact with the planners. I think another variance is required on this application, but I will deal with that offline here, but we will have to post anyway. So whether it's one variance or two, there's still a hearing to be held.
For sure. And, the chairperson would like to thank Councillor Mays for his diligence on the file of zoning appeals, etc. I wouldn't have caught that, forgot all about it, but Councillor Mays does not. So therefore, I'll ask Councillor Mays to move adjournment.
I will move adjournment. Thank you for the
All those in-
comments.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, that is carried.
Thank you.